A lot of the times I've said I've been really lucky, but it's really not luck. You have to make your own opportunities. My name is Laura Hohman, and I'm a CG supervisor on the new Rugrats series.
I'm Patrick Krebs. I'm a senior supervising producer at the studio. Right now, I'm currently producing Star Trek Prodigy.
My name is Robert Castaneda, and I am the CG animation director currently on Rugrats. I've been working in animation for 21 years. I actually went to college to be a physical therapist, believe it or not.
Kind of my day-to-day as a CG supervisor is really managing all the different divisions underneath me. I spend a lot of time with the texture teams, the modeling teams, the rigging teams, and kind of overseeing them, as well as spending a lot of time with more of like the producers and making sure that everything that they want to do on the show, we find a way to do it, or we find creative solutions. I also interact a lot with our vendor studios. So at Nickelodeon, we do a lot of in-house build, but quite a bit of the work is also done internationally. So managing both local and international, and just making sure all that communication is open and we are getting things to our studios when they need them so that we can keep making the show.
My job at the studio is basically to develop a pipeline and kind of be chief of staff for the show that I'm working on, and to advise other CG shows on kind of best practices and the way to handle overseas studios and stuff like that. So part of my job involves traveling all around the world to different studios and maintaining relationships with those studios and training them on how to produce great shows the way that we do.
As the animation director, you pretty much have to watch every single scene that comes into the studio. And not just every single scene, but every facet of it. You have to watch every character, different parts of the character. You have to watch every prop. You're watching the whole thing. You're trying to mold it to make the final product. So it's a very over-the-top, kind of broad scope position.
I don't come from the typical, I always knew I wanted to be an animation or an artist. I come from like a math and science background. And that's what I pursued all the way through most of a bachelor's degree, until I realized that I really had passion for math and science, but it wasn't what I wanted to spend my whole life doing. So I took a little time off, and then I kind of fell into animation. I always grew up with animated movies and Disney and all of that. And until then, I hadn't really realized that people did this work. So I started taking classes and graduated with a bachelor in animation. When I first graduated, I had moved to LA with an internship at a visual effects house. Within a month of moving out to LA, I got my first gig at Nickelodeon working on the 2012 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show. I was hired as a texture artist. So that's kind of where I come from and move through the pipeline.
I have an undergraduate degree in history, and after college, I worked in finance for a couple of years. So it took me a couple of years to realize that this was something that I wanted to do. I was working a lot on my own, teaching myself this stuff in a basement. I worked up the courage to go back to school and learn to do this professionally. I studied visual effects, I studied compositing, and I studied lighting. We used a lot of programs that really we don't use anymore because software is changing so fluidly and so often. That's one of the reasons I love this industry, is because you're always constantly learning and things are constantly changing. When I was in school, I started an internship at a small place in New York called Mechanism Digital, and there I did research and some CG work for some shows that aired on the History Channel. When I graduated, I moved out to Los Angeles as soon as possible because I knew that's where this stuff was happening. And then I started to work for another little shop out here in LA called Flight 33, and they did a show called The Universe for the History Channel. So I got a job working on that, and I worked there for I think 8 or 9 months until I met somebody whose husband worked at Nickelodeon, and then I started to talk to them and they wanted to interview me, so they brought me in and I started at Nickelodeon. at that point, like 12 years ago. I started at the bottom. I was a lighting artist, and then I became a lead compositor, and then a comp supervisor, and then eventually a visual effects supervisor, and then a supervising producer. And I've been a supervising producer on a couple of different made-for-TV movies and TV shows so far. And that's what's led me to, having the experience that I need to be able to be the producer on Star Trek.
When I was in college and I started kind of looking around for what I wanted to do with my life, I decided to take a drawing class. And it was a weird sense of, wow, this really feels right for me. I think that this is something that I want to do professionally. I started studying animation, ended up doing multiple internships, one of which was at Rhythm and Hughes, where I got to work on shows like Flintstones, Cats and Dogs. When I graduated college, I started as a production animator. And from there, I moved into more of like a lead position. After working in movies, I moved into game animation. Eventually, that's what kind of led to me getting into directing. Most notably, I was an animation director on the Uncharted series, the first couple of them. I had an opportunity to start my own company, and I actually had a small animation company doing game animation for 2 years. After that, I started at Nick as a CG animation director on Robot and Monster, and I think I'm going on 10 years now.
Kids, they grow up so fast.
So basically, like, a show will get greenlit, it'll come into the studio, and they'll start putting together leadership for the team. So they'll find like an executive producer, and then that executive producer will find an art director. And those two people are kind of the leadership of the show. They take ownership for like the way the show looks and the concept of the show. And then the show starts getting episodes written. You get a script. A script will get drawn out into storyboards, which are still frames that represent the whole episode of that particular TV show. Those storyboards will then get cut together by an animatic editor, and the animatic editor will make an animatic. So that's a moving picture. Basically, they take those drawn frames and they make the timed show that you'll see in rough and loose drawings. Meanwhile, what's happening is at the script stage, the CG supervisors are getting together and they're looking at the script and the animatics for what needs to get built. So we're identifying characters, we're identifying props, we're identifying sets, and we're asking a lot of questions. We put together a lot of questions, and we have meetings where we sit down with the executive producers and the art directors and the writers, and we say, hey, you wrote this into the script, but this thing doesn't really exist. So do you want to see this thing? Oftentimes we'll give them like alternatives for some of the stuff that they'll have in there. And then we just kind of like iron out what we need to build. So once we have that list of stuff that we need to build, usually an art director has below them like a prop designer, a character designer, and a set designer. And they go through a process where they're making 2D line art for the props, the characters, and the sets. And then that line art becomes colored art. And the line art goes to modelers so that they can make the characters, they can make the props, and they can make the sets. And then the color art goes to the texturing side where they'll be, painting all of the modeled objects once they're modeled. Meanwhile, there is a team of people on the production side. There are production assistants and production coordinators and people that have specific episodes under their jurisdiction, and they manage the flow of those assets. So there's a whole team on each show that's dedicated to following up with the art director. Does the art director have the art that they need? Okay, they have the art. Now I'm going to pass it off to the modeler. And they're managing those kind of pipeline steps. So once the assets are built, they, in most cases, get shipped over to a partner studio that does animation for us. And that involves layout. So they'll stage everything in the scene and have very rough blocking for what the scene looks like and camera direction and stuff. That will come back to us. Somebody like Robert will review that animation, send them notes. That becomes a first animation pass. It'll come back to him again. He'll give them more notes. It comes back as secondary animation. And each step of the process, the animation gets a little more refined and a little better until it's approved. Then it goes into lighting. In most cases, we have characters and sets as models will get lit by us back at Nickelodeon so that the art director can sign off on that, because that's basically, once you have a lit asset, that's what it will look like in the show. So that is the most important thing to get approved art-wise. So once the animation's approved, those lit assets start to get rendered. They get rendered usually on layers. and then those layers are put together by a compositor. Then a comp supervisor starts getting those lit shots back. That basically gets approved. Some people are fixing things behind the scenes. Some people are like adding effects. There's some post-production polish that goes on there. And then basically you have a production finaled episode. Then there's a very short process where that episode gets color corrected, where we go to a facility that manages color correction and color correct an episode. That episode gets sound mixed. That is a different company. They add all the sound effects, all the Foley, and they mix the final episode. And then at that point, with the color correction and with the final print of the picture and with the sound design, all that stuff is kind of managed by a post-production team at Nickelodeon. So they'll put together each shot as an individual QuickTime. They'll edit it together, and they manage sending it to get sound mixed and sending it to get color corrected and all that stuff. And then they get all that stuff back and they put it all together into the final package that goes to the network.
Do it! Shiver me timbers! Tremendo! I did it? Whoa!
Overall, when it comes to finding work, I've been very fortunate. And I think a lot of that has to do with making sure that you are in the right place at the right time. You need to make sure you are going to conventions. Make sure you're talking to people. I'd say, especially when I was early in my career, a lot of the opportunities and networking I did were informational interviews. I really recommend that for people, is just reaching out to someone who has a job you want or a job you're curious about through LinkedIn or ArtStation or email, and just ask them for an informational interview. It's really low stress. You're not asking for a job. You're just asking them about what they do. And I met a ton of people that way, contacts that I met 10 years ago who I still talk to, who maybe back then I wanted more from, but now we've actually grown a relationship and we have a history. So when opportunities come up, we have more context.
In terms of getting into animation, absolutely find out what you want to do. Try to learn your craft really well, because at the end of the day, that's what people are going to critique your work on. I don't want to say it's necessarily important for you to know everything. It does help to have a more broad skill set. But I know plenty of animation directors and animation supervisors and animators who just know animation, and that's totally fine. For myself as a CG animation director, you kind of have to have a very broad skill set. So things in addition to animation that I've always been extremely interested in are the different skills required to do all of my colleagues' jobs, not at their level, but I know about what they do. Because of that, it allows me to make decisions that will avoid problems down the pipeline.
Part of what helped me rise up through the ranks at Nickelodeon was I was never shy to help when the need arises. When you do get your foot in the door, go that extra mile, find out where the problems are and get in there and try to be the solution for those problems. Because if you make yourself that solution, then you'll be invaluable to the organization and you'll always have a place and you'll always move up and you'll always be trusted. Every now and then you have a quiet moment or a lull in work, and there are times where I've seen artists use that time to learn, and I've seen artists try to anticipate what tomorrow's needs will be. And I think it's really important that as you have ups and downs in production, as things are busy and things are less busy, when you have those moments to breathe, take them, but also know that that's time that you can use to anticipate what might happen tomorrow. So get ahead of the curve, and that will also put you on a track to be seen by, your superiors and by people that will value you as part of the production.
I completely want to work with people who want to be in animation, who really want this job. I love people who are invested and who want to make the work as good as possible.
Do present yourself with confidence. You love what you do. That's why you're here listening to us today. And you're choosing animation and you're choosing CG production because you love it. So be aware of that love that you have for that thing that you want to do and be unapologetic about it. Be enthusiastic and be unapologetic. When you interview with somebody, follow up with them. I've had a lot of instances, especially in Star Trek, where we've had a lot of kind of starts and stops. What you need today might change tomorrow as a production. So if we go out and we're looking for people to hire, we obviously want those people and we want good people, but sometimes things don't go according to plan or go according to schedule. So it's totally okay to follow up with the people that you've interviewed with. Also, if you interview with somebody and you don't get the job, it never harms you to keep in contact with that person. If you get a sit-down face-to-face meeting with somebody in the industry, it's a big deal. So get their information. And you might not get the job today, but there might be a production tomorrow that you're better for, you know? We've seen things on Star Trek where we're looking for people that sculpt very realistically, and I got a lot of demo reels that had a lot of cartoony stuff because that's what Nickelodeon's used to. And I saw some really, really talented people that I had to tell them that they weren't right for Star Trek, but we keep you in the mix because the work is great. You just have a cartoony style and you probably will fit with the next show. And the studio is expanding at a big rate right now. So even if you don't get the job, keep in contact with the people that you interview with. When I say follow up with us, don't email or call us every day, use discretion. But if you want to send an email once a week or once every 2 weeks, that is a proper interval.
So at Nickelodeon, we generally have very specific roles. There's, texture, character modeling, character rigor, environment modeling. Don't apply for everything. If you apply for everything, I have no idea what you actually want to do. And usually that's kind of a signal that you don't know what you want to do either with your career. So really kind of research the studios you're applying for. What we're looking for and what specific roles is going to be very different than, a commercial house or Disney or DreamWorks or any other studio. I will say there's nothing wrong with being more of a generalist. So if you really like modeling and texturing, be sure to say that on your resume. And you can maybe show, I'd say, a little bit of that work on your demo reel. That kind of overlays both because we definitely want artists who are well-rounded. It really helps when someone knows multiple parts of the pipeline. And as Nickelodeon is growing, there's a lot more opportunities and all the shows are starting to have slightly different needs of what they want. For example, on my show, I prefer people who are multidisciplined. So if you can do rigging and character modeling, that's awesome. Please let me know that.
Another don't I have is don't be afraid to speak up. Since we're all teachable at any age, you might have a solution that your supervisor hasn't thought of. So don't be afraid to speak up and share your ideas. Know what pushes you forward and know what holds you back. There are habits that you have that make you a better artist, and there are things that you do that prevent you from being a better artist. People spend a lot of time these days consuming, and I think that there is a difference between creation and consumption. And really, these jobs go to people that spend time every day creating, whether it's drawing, whether it's working on CG models, whether it's lighting things, whatever your thing is that you want to do in CG or you want to do as an artist, do a little of it every day. Don't make your resumes too complicated. Honestly, I see resumes come through in all different forms. For me, keeping it simple is the best way for me to learn about who you are. I see a lot of boxes on resumes that show me what software you're proficient in and stuff like that. And honestly, as a producer, that doesn't matter to me. If I'm hiring a modeler, I expect you to know how to model, and to know how to use those software packages. If you're a compositor, I expect you to know how that software works. I don't need to know that you know Photoshop and Word and Excel and things like that.
A lot of hiring at Nickelodeon is kind of culture-based. Once you get the interview, usually we're pretty sure that you have the skills. We're fairly certain because you're now in the room. But once you're in the room, what I'm looking for is, are you a good fit for my show, for my team, and for Nickelodeon? Probably the first question in my mind that's most important to me when interviewing someone is this person someone who looks for their own answers? Everyone is very busy, but I have a lot of meetings. So if I can hire someone who, before they ask me a question, they can read documentation or go to forums and try and find an answer for a technical problem. Someone who's really a self-starter and who takes initiative, that's one of the top things I look for. As well as someone who is able to communicate clearly and really kind of talk to us one-on-one. We're all people. We all just want to work. Preferably, we want to work with people we like. Just be comfortable. None of us are celebrities, so it's usually fairly casual.
I would say if you don't have the money to go to school, you don't have the money to move, it's just about doing the work. The best way to get in is to have good work, is to have good artwork. Like if you want to be an animator and you haven't animated anything before, I'd say the first 1 to 3 weeks of learning on your own is going to be kind of like learning how to push the buttons and how the software works and stuff like that. So like be easy on yourself. And then there are rigged character models online. If you're a lighter, there are sets online that you can download. There's never been a better time to get this stuff from online resources. And so whatever it is you want to do, get the foundation that you need and then do the artwork. Find scenes that are your favorite scenes from your favorite movies and animate to them, or light them like your favorite scenes in your favorite movies. Really, it is about the art. I don't care where it came from. I don't care what school you went to. If I see a demo reel and your stuff is like outstanding, show me something I can't ignore.
The biggest thing when it comes to getting hired is, like I said, networking. Your connections are like everything. People will kind of know when opportunities will be coming up soon. We work really closely with recruiting and our amazing team here at Nick. But, it's always good to have a person on the inside who might know that things are coming up and kind of recommend you. Recommendations are really important, and it means a lot if you are recommended for a position. So making those connections, networking, very important. But on top of that, also skill. In my opinion, you don't have to have gone to college to do this work. You need to have the skills, and that's the most important thing. I personally don't care if you had a degree. If it's just a couple classes and then you on your own have managed to build up your skill sets, that says a lot about you as a person.
One thing I would tell myself is not to turn down any opportunities. I mean that because there'll be times when jobs will come up, but you have your heart set on working for Disney. So you turn down that job. Definitely, I would tell myself to take every opportunity that came to me, because I think that early on, the allure of working for like one of those big companies slowed my initial ability to get it, because I had maybe an opportunity here or two. It may not have been the big name, but it was still a door that was opening. And probably I should have gone through it as opposed to trying to get that big tamale.
My answer to that question has always been don't quit. There are a lot of people that have been drawing for like 14 years, and you start drawing and you say, how can I catch up to that person? They've been drawing for 14 years. They're such a good artist. The most important thing is to start and then to not stop. So I would tell myself that every job, but especially production jobs, get stressful, and there are times where it's a lot of work. And so if this is something that you don't love, then you'll find yourself in a position where you'll want to stop. So I would say if you love it and this is something that you want to do, start doing it today and do it a little bit every day and just don't give up.
Anything creative is pretty much like a labor of love. So you're either going to really love it and you're going to be into it. You're going to want to keep molding it and making it better and better and better. For myself, there are definitely moments where I felt like, this isn't working out, but it's your passion that wants to make it better that keeps you pretty much motivated.
I think it's really important to have balance. When you're really passionate and you want to keep going, it's really important to make sure you are taking care of yourself and you take a break, and that allows you to stay charged longer, as well as really remembering why you're doing it. Sometimes, you have this thing that you're just so focused on, but then you forget why, what's the end goal. And I think always making sure you remember what it is you're fighting for, what it is that drives you. I literally have Post-its, just reminders. And for me, that really helps.
Take the space and time you need as an artist to reflect. I am kind of a workaholic, and I am constantly doing this stuff. Sometimes I wear myself down. So one of the things I always have to remind myself is to take that walk, meditate, maybe take a day off, relax, and get the space that you need. Because if you are banging your head on a task over and over and over again, it might just be that your brain is stuck and you need space. And as an artist, you need to, go out and sit in a field somewhere and just look at the trees to have that inspiration kind of sweep over you.
Oh, wow! I love that you just said that.
Everybody out here in LA is, we joke that everybody's from somewhere else, that nobody's really from LA. And I think it's really important that if this is something you want to do and this is where you want to be, that you come out here and you start meeting people and you start doing it. I think this is kind of like the epicenter for where animation happens. And if it's something that you're serious about doing, it's really a good idea to come out here because it shows people how serious you are.
Definitely put yourself in a position to be successful, to get opportunities. Look for those internships. Once you get through the door, never stop learning. Be nice to everybody. It's a really small industry. The people that actually hired me at Nickelodeon were people that were my animators back in a couple years before then. So I was their boss then, and then they were my boss at Nickelodeon. I would say almost every single job after the first 2 or 3 were all because I had friends at other studios who wanted to continue to work with me and wanted to bring me on board, try to get along with everyone, try to be an asset to every team, and try to contribute as much as you can.
I had a mentor a while ago in business who told me that she looks for 3 things in a prospective employee, and it's humility, heart, and hunger. Humility is, like I said before, present yourself with confidence, not arrogance, and be humble and stay teachable. The second thing is be hungry. We want to work with other people that are as driven as we are and who get excited about CG and who get excited about animation the same way we do. We want to work with somebody that gets as worked up and excited as we are about the little things that we're doing in the art world. So if it seems like you don't really want the job or you aren't really interested, why would we take an interest in you? And heart means emotional intelligence. It means you can navigate a social situation like a job interview and you can relate to the people that you're working with. At the end of the day, most of the people that we work with are good and close friends, and we've been through some really good times and we've been through some really bad times. So when you're a new person and you're coming into the studio and we offer you a job, we want to make sure that you're going to fit in the social situation and that you're going to be able to read a room and understand when it's time to be assertive and when it's time to listen, when it's time to push your supervisor, and when it's time to let things go.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and don't be afraid to speak up and show that, you have an opinion, one that you can back up with knowledge and information. Just really put yourself out there. I think that's the biggest thing.